Hello, my name's Isla Blair. I'm an actress and I hope you're going to look at a little video about various things I've done in my career, and I hope you enjoy it.
So Isla, lovely to see you today, and
Very
thank you
nice.
for inviting me into your home. We're going to start with the Whatever Happened To series, where I will ask you 25 quick-fire questions. So let's start with question number 1. What is your full name given at birth?
Isla Jean Blair Hill.
And when is your birthday and the year of your birth?
29th of September 1944.
And as a child, where were you born and raised?
I was born in Bangalore, South India, but my father worked for a tea company in Kerala, so I spent the first few years of my life there, and then I went to Scotland to boarding school.
If any, how many brothers and sisters did you have growing up?
I had my older sister Fiona, who's 4 years older than me, and she's very beloved to me. I love her.
What is your earliest memory of going to the cinema or the theatre?
I've got two. My earliest memory of going to the cinema was when I was very small indeed, and that was in India, and I went to see Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. That's where the horrible stepmother's got the apple, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was taken out of the cinema screaming at that. I couldn't go. And my mum was very embarrassed because I made such a noise. But that was my first cinema. My first theatre that I went to see Kiss Me Kate at Drury Lane when I was not quite 6. I was about 5 3/4. And I remember sitting, my mother told me that I sat there absolutely mesmerised from the beginning to the end. I almost didn't move. I just was spellbound by it. And I said to my parents at the end of it, I said, I'm going to do that. Meaning I'm going to be an actress, I think. And I kept saying, please can we go and see it again? Please can we go and see it again? Well, we didn't go and see it again. But then many, many years later, I did play Kate in Kiss Me Kate at the Breslau Vic. So, hurrah! It was lovely.
It may well have been that occasion that you've just mentioned there, Isla, but was there an actual event or trigger that first prompted you to seriously consider acting as a profession, and how old were you?
I think I was even younger than that. I came home on board ship from India to Scotland, and at one point the entertainment manager said, is there anybody here who would like to sing a song? And I said, I would actually, so I did. And I suddenly heard, first of all, people were laughing, going, oh, all that kind of stuff. And then I suddenly heard them go quiet, and I thought, oh, that's even better. And then the man said, would you like to sing another song? And I said, I would actually, yes, and sang a second song. And it was the first time I felt that I had the audience in my hand. And my sister was incredibly embarrassed because the tannoy went all over the ship, and she said, oh my God, that's Isla, you've got to stop her, you've got to stop her. But I was away with that, and that was that feeling that I got of, this is lovely, and the people seem to be listening to me and they seem to be enjoying it. It was special. So, oh Gertie.
Growing up, did you have a favourite actor or actress, maybe even a radio star, whose work you really admired?
When I was a little girl, when I was very small, yes, there was Jean Simmons was I thought that she was absolutely wonderful. And I remember seeing her in a film called The Robe with Richard Burton, and he was another great favourite too. And Gregory Peck, that was another actor that I really admired. But Jean Simmons, I think, was my sort of first crush, I think. And I thought, oh, if I could be like her, who could be like Jean Simmons? She was wonderful. Audrey Hepburn was another one, actually. Those two were my favourites, I think.
Did you ever attend a stage school or audition, study, or formally train to be an actress anywhere?
Not when I was a little girl, no. But I did go to RADA when I was actually a little bit too young. I attended RADA, actually it was 9 days before my 17th birthday. And I used to sit on the auditioning panel at RADA, and if somebody came so early, we'd say, listen, it's terrific and it's lovely to meet you, but please come again maybe in 2 years' time, and we'll halve the entrance fee for you, if you like, because it doesn't seem fair that they should pay twice. But I was a bit too young to go to RADA, but I did, and I was only there for I was there for 2 years, which is what the course was in those days. So yeah, I loved it actually, eventually.
Either before you began your acting career, or maybe when you were between roles at any point in your career, what other non-acting jobs have you ever done?
Do you know, I haven't. But when I was at RADA, during the holidays, I worked as a chambermaid and waitress at a hotel near Oxshott in Surrey. It was such hard work. I was up every day scrubbing the floors, taking in people's bed tea, and it was really, really hard work, but I did it. Didn't get paid. I think I got paid £5 a week, but I did that to earn some money. And I was also a waitress in a store in Crawley in Sussex, again during the holidays. But apart from that, no, I haven't. I've been lucky enough actually to keep working as an actress really all my life, so I haven't subsidised myself by doing any other work, which is my good fortune really, more than anything.
What was your first ever paid acting performance, i.e. your professional debut, and again, how old were you?
I was not quite 19, and it was in a funny thing happened on the way to the Forum, and that was a musical in London, directed by George Abbott. It was quite a starry production. It was Harold Prince, George Abbott, Stephen Sondheim. First time Stephen Sondheim did both words and music to a show, actually. And I was engaged as the understudy. And the actress, Sally Smith, who was playing my part, she hadn't finished on a film. So I stood in for her for about the first 7 or 8 days. And she came back and she still hadn't finished the film properly, so she had to keep going back. And they said, well, we'll have to recast because Sally, you're busy doing something else. So they did, and instead of getting anybody else, they actually got me. So that was my good fortune again. My first job was actually playing the so-called leading lady in the West End. Downhill from there.
Can you remember how old you were, or what production you were working on, when someone first asked you for an autograph?
I think in Forum, actually. When I left the stage door, in a funny thing happened on the way to the Forum, there were people outside the stage door. And I remember, I used to just turn up in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt and things. And I remember John Pertwee, who was also in that show, he said, Isla, when you come into work, don't come in looking like you do, which is jeans and t-shirt, no makeup, looking dreadful. Come in properly dressed, because there will be people there who will want your autograph maybe. And I said, no, they won't want my autograph. Well, you never know. But come in looking professional. And I took that to heart, actually. I still came in looking a little bit sloppy, to be honest, with my jeans and t-shirt. But that when I went out after the show, I always knew that it would be nice for me, and I hope for the person that was asking for the autograph, if you gave them enough attention and if you actually had made an effort to look reasonable. That was all. I remember once, actually, though, when I was in the History Boys in London, going into the work, and there was someone sitting on two ladies sitting on the tube opposite me, and they pointed at me and went, oh, and I tried not to notice. And one said that to the other, and the other one looked up and said, oh, I don't like her. That was me put in my place. No autograph was asked for on that occasion. And then actually when I did get to the theatre, actually, it was quite funny. Somebody did ask for my autograph. I said, Isla, could I take a photograph of you? I just want to finish my film. So, how to keep your feet on the ground.
And as a young actress, did you put much thought into the construction of your signature? Because you've got quite a nice, neat autograph.
I don't think I did, actually. No. I know how people sort of practice their signature. No, it just sort of went along with the way that I write, really, I think. So, no. I should have done. Probably should have paid more attention to it, but I didn't know.
And the signature that you signed today, it's still very much...
Very similar.
How you signed?
Absolutely, exactly. In fact, I do an I that sort of seems to have sort of curl on it. I don't know why. But it is. It's very, very similar. And I used to do a funny R as well. Instead of doing an R kind of like that, I do a sort of like a sort of old-fashioned R. Anyway, there we are, that's what I do. So yeah.
At any point in your life or your career, have you ever been starstruck when meeting someone famous for the first time? And have you ever asked anyone for an autograph?
I'm not sure that I have, actually. I always feel a bit shy about asking for autographs. I mean, I live next door. There lives Robert Pattinson. Well, he did when he was a young man. And his mother still lives there. And she's a very good friend as well as a neighbour of ours. And I wouldn't dream of asking for an autograph, even for my granddaughters who think he's wonderful. Because somehow I feel as if I'm invading their privacy somehow. So I've never done that with colleagues, people that I've worked with. But I have been quite starstruck with people that I've met. Seeing Charlton Heston for the first time when he was a very well-known movie star. All sorts of people, really. And Anthony Hopkins I was at drama school with, so I was terrified of him at drama school, though, actually, because Tony was fantastic. He was a very good mimic, apart from all the other things that he was good at. But at the time, I think he would agree with me that he was a drunk. He just was always drunk. And he was quite an angry drunk, so you never wanted to be on the wrong side of Tony. And in fact, I don't think he even noticed that I was in the same class as him, actually. But he was very, very... I've admired Tony for years. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful actor. And now that he doesn't drink, very special indeed. He gave up drinking, actually, long after he left RADA. So he hasn't drunk for years.
And throughout your career, I see a few photos of your career around the house. But are you one for collecting any memorabilia? And other than the posters, do you have anything else in your possession today?
Not really. I mean, I like to keep flyers of plays that I've been in the theatre, because that's just a nice memory, really. Julian used to collect memorabilia. That's Julian, my husband, used to collect memorabilia. He collected, I remember he had the Star Wars badge when he played General Veers, just a little steel thing. And he had all sorts of little Star Wars things. But he also, when he was in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, they made a sort of death mask of him, like a model, because he had to grow very old in the film. And they used that as a sort of model for what they were going to do. And at the end of it, they said to Julian, "Would you like this?" And he said, "Well, I'm not sure, but okay." So he brought it home, and I said, "Oh, great, that's horrible. It looks like you're dead." So we put it in the garage, and then even several months later, I said, "Actually, I can't bear looking at this." So we put it in the dustbin. And Julian was at one of those conventions a few years later, actually, it must be about 15 years ago now. And Julian was saying that this had happened, and he said, "You didn't put it in the dustbin, did you, Julian? I would have given you," and this is a long time ago, "I would have given you $35,000 for that." So since then, Julian's never really thrown anything away. He's hung on to everything. But I don't know. I haven't kept anything, really.
I think I know the answer to this one, but you've worked across every medium, but what would you choose as your preference? Theatre, television, cinema, maybe audio? And what reasons would you give for your answer?
Theatre, by far and away. I love doing theatre. I love working on a play with the other actors and the writer and the director. That's always very stimulating and interesting. Scary too, it's always very challenging. I love being with a live audience, because you always get a different thing from every audience every night. There's something different. So theatre is my first choice, really. I also like doing audio. I love doing radio. I've done a lot of audio books actually too, which I enjoy doing. They're hard work, audio books, because the preparation is hard, because you've got to work out the different voices that you're doing, and you can't suddenly say at the end of it, "He said in his Russian accent," and you haven't been doing a Russian accent for it. You've got to really prepare for it. So that takes time, but I really do enjoy doing them. So I like doing audio, and I do like doing film and television, but they're, for me, I shouldn't say it, but they're way down the list from theatre, I'm afraid. Theatre's always there.
Which of your parts, performances or characters would you say people remember you for the most?
Oh, goodness me. I think probably the House of Cards, the final cut in the House of Cards. probably The History Man with Anthony Sher. I've done so many little bits and bobs actually. I think probably the Hammer one. That's what I get the most letters about, and it's very nice that people still remember that and write in about it. So that's very gratifying. It's lovely that people write to you. Actually, it's really, they take the time and the trouble to write. So that's lovely.
And taking more of an introspective view, whether it be for what you did on stage or screen, can you name any of your own individual performance or maybe performances that you are personally the most proudest of or found the most rewarding?
I love playing Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Not a very nice person, but that was great fun to do. That was in the theatre. There's so many theatre performances that I've done. I love doing the History Boys. It was lovely being actually in the company. I was the only woman in that, in the whole company. And all the rest were very young men. And it was lovely being with them. But for some reason, they very sweetly asked me to go out and join them after the show sometimes. But I stayed a bit clear because I thought, they don't want to know bad like me joining them, but they were always very gracious about it. So that was lovely. I think, I love playing Private Lives. I love playing Amanda in Private Lives. Any Noel Coward play, actually, I've done a few. They're always, Hay Fever's another one. I love doing that. And I was in a production of Pirandello's Henry IV with Richard Harris, which has got quite a story to it, actually, because Richard was in that, and Sarah Miles was playing the leading lady. You probably know all this, and she left. And they had to replace her, and they replaced her with me. And he'd gone through 5 directors, leading lady, 2 lighting designers, 2 set designers, costume designers, everything. And when it came to me playing the part, I was expecting to rehearse with them. I went up to York where they were playing on tour, and no sign of Richard, never met him. And then we rehearsed a bit in London, no sign of Richard, never met him. I worked with the understudy only, which was a bit discombobulating. I remember Julian and indeed Jamie, my son, saying, you must make a fuss, you must say this, I can't do this if I'm not rehearsing with him. And something in me made me think, he wants me to react like that. He wants me to make a fuss about it, because I found out actually that play was the play that made Richard want to be an actor. But he was terrified, so he was doing everything he could to put it off in the West End, and he didn't turn up for the dress rehearsal. He didn't turn up for the first preview, and at the second preview he did turn up, and that was kind of like the first time I met him. And we went on stage together, and he was fine. And then about 4 days in, I was on stage, and his character comes in and does a sort of 20-minute speech. And at one point he just looked at me and said, "What are you staring at?" Well, of course I had no lines to reply to that. So I don't know why it came into my head, a line from Tamburlaine the Great, and I just said, "Is it not passing fair to be a king and ride in triumph through Persepolis?" And I did a very deep curtsy and I walked off the stage. I got into a bit of trouble for that, actually. But Richard, I think, wrote about that in one of his, something that he wrote about it. And he came up to my dressing room afterward and apologised, and I promise I'll never do that to you again. And we then, thereafter, actually, oddly enough, we became extremely close friends. And we saw each other quite a lot. And we were going to do a production of Macbeth together in New York, but it fell through. So it was just a strange...
Wonderful story.
Yeah, strange.
Now, I'm sure there may be many, but is there one particular role that still hankers today that you auditioned for, really wanted, but didn't sadly get?
No, there are a few telly plays that I auditioned for that I didn't get. Several, not a few, quite a lot. But somehow, when you don't get a part, you have to sort of let it go. Otherwise, it's a little kernel and eats away in your brain. I just go, didn't work out for me. She was much better casting. There was one, actually, I'm very grateful in the end I didn't get. I tested for the Colbys with Charlton Heston. And I got closer because I knew Charlton Heston very well. He would ring up and say, they're very interested in you for this part. And by this time, my feet were getting terribly cold about the whole project, because you had to sign for 5 years. And if you got the part after you tested, you were obliged to do it. You couldn't say, actually, I've changed my mind. No, you had to do it. So that was really quite, oh, good Lord. I was doing a play in the West End, so I couldn't go out to Los Angeles to test for it. I tested for it here. I was doing Private Lives, actually. And they said, Chuck knows Julian, and said, Julian's tall, he's older than you, why don't you get him to test with you? So that's what happened. And Aaron Spelling said, when he saw it, he said, who's the man? And Chuck said, that's Julian Glover, her husband. Oh, had they been married long? Well, yes, their son's 16, Jamie was then. And he said, that's not going to be so useful to us, really. And what they wanted, I think, was somebody who was unencumbered with a husband, so that they could make her, not for anything more serious than going out for dinner or being seen at a premiere with other people, that was part of their publicity thing, really. And also as part of the contract, which I hadn't been told when I was signed, when the studio decided that you should have a facelift, that you should have your boobs lifted or whatever, that you would do it, no question. I didn't realise that I was signing away for that, but I wasn't terribly happy about that. But luckily I didn't get it, and Stephanie Beacham did, and all I can say is that Stephanie was wonderful in the part, much better than I would have been. So she was a very good choice that they made, and Chuck was very happy working with her too, so it was all worked out well. But I didn't have any regrets about that particular one. Yeah, let that one go happily.
Maybe due to other commitments or conflicts in your own schedule, was there ever a part that you had to turn down and again regretted that decision?
There's another one that I didn't get, actually, that I was sad about at the time, but that worked out. Things have a way of mapping out. When I did Flea and Herrera in Paris for 20th Century Fox, I was under contract to them then. And so there were certain things that I was obliged to go up for, and I did. And one of the things was the film of Hello, Dolly with Barbara Streisand for The Girl in the Hat Shop. And I actually got the part. And my agent was very excited about it. It was a relocation fee. They were providing me with a flat, and I was going to have a car and a driver, all the things that you would get on a film. And then suddenly, at the last minute, they said, American Equity have gone, no, absolutely not. Because they had Michael Crawford in it, who was unknown as well at the time. Believe it or not, Michael Crawford being unknown seems hardly possible. But it was Michael Crawford was in it, and they said, we can't have another unknown English actor, playing an American part. American actors just said no. So that was the end of that, so I didn't get it. But I'd only just met Julian then. So who knows, if I'd gone to America and things would have panned out differently, and I probably would have not been with Julian. So it's a great gift that I am with Julian, so I didn't mind really losing that one either. So,
can you name a co-star that you liked working with the most, and maybe any that you had a tougher time working with, namely anyone you didn't like, or maybe anyone who was unsupportive or was quite mean to you?
Yes. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Who have I really enjoyed working with? I loved working with Tony Hopkins, of course, but that was only a RADA, but we did Look Back in Anger together, and it was wonderful. He's a wonderful person to work with. So many actors have been wonderful, actually. I've liked working with most actors, to be absolutely honest. There was one I had a tough time with. When I was in Flea and Herrera out in Paris, I played the little saucy maid, with a hat and petticoats and everything. And for some reason, Rachel Roberts took an absolute fervent dislike to me. I hadn't said anything to her, I hadn't done anything. Rex Harrison, who she was married to at the time, certainly wasn't the slightest bit interested in me. But she really didn't like me. And I was not allowed onto the set when she was there. And I wasn't even allowed to eat in the restaurant. I had to eat in my dressing room. And at the end of every week, it was French tradition, French cinema, that the director, the producer, and the main actor would give a party for the crew, just at the end of shooting, on the end of the week. It would be, that's what would happen. I was banned from all of those, which was really awful. I felt as if I'd been put into sort of, I don't know, purdah somehow, as if nobody wanted to associate with me, which was really horrible. And there was no reason for me, because there's no reason for her to dislike me. But in fact, later on, I found out that she was actually having a very miserable time with Rex Harrison, who I understand, he was perfectly fine to me, but I understand wasn't very nice to her. And by all accounts, actually wasn't really a very nice man. And not many years after that, poor Rachel, she took her own life by drinking swimming pool fluid, I think. Do I mean that? Yes, I don't know what it was. But anyway, it was all poor Rachel. So I think probably even at the time I realised that there was something going on. I knew it couldn't really be anything that I'd done, because I hadn't done anything. I'd actually hardly spoken to her. So that was, but it just made being on the film really tough, because people didn't want to be seen with me. So.
And you worked with Julian throughout your career, both film, TV, stage. Mm-hmm. What's that dynamic like?
It's good, actually. I mean, we've done that Indiana Jones bit. Well, I had a little cough and a spit in that, but that was great fun to do. The main one that was really enjoyable to do was we all did Hamlet together. My son played Hamlet, Julian played Hamlet's father, the ghost, and I played Gertrude. And there was one, wasn't so much with Julian. Julian was directing it as well, but Jamie, our son, who's currently actually at the National Theatre in a play with Rosamund Pike called Inter Alia. When Jamie was a little boy, he and I had a row, and I've never hit Jamie in his life. We were in the middle of having this row, and I said at one point, "How dare you say that to me?" And I whacked him across the face. And he whacked me right back. And we burst out laughing, the pair of us together. And we used that in Hamlet. I said, let's do that one rehearsal. Let's see if people weren't expecting it. And I hit him, wallop, and he hit me right back. And the people in the rehearsal went, and that happened every single night when we did it on stage. So it was fabulous. So it was some things that there are you can use from your own life in a stage production or on screen, which is quite good. But I think on the whole, we don't try to do it very often, but we've done it occasionally. We did a lovely play called In Praise of Love together, a Terence Rattigan play, and that was absolutely lovely. I love working with Julian because I admire him tremendously as an actor, and he's got very good taste, I think, as an actor, and he's very helpful to me. I hope I'm helpful to him too. So it's a good thing.
Rather than asking you who your favourite director is or was, I'll ask in a slightly different way. Outline what a director needs to do to get the best performance out of Isla Blair. Yeah. And can you name any directors that you worked with that did just that?
I think what you don't want from a director is for them to tell you how to play the part as you're doing it. You don't want them to say, now look upset when you're moving to the door, when you're already upset moving to the door, because you think, I'm doing that. So you don't want somebody who does that. Quite a lot of directors do that. And you don't want a director to take your confidence away. I worked recently with an American director who sadly, actually just in the last couple of weeks, died, a man called Mark Brokaw, who was an American director, and he directed me in a play called The Lions at the Chocolate Factory. And he was a very tough director. He knew what he wanted, and if he wasn't getting it, he'd tell you. And you'd say, well, how can you help me get there? And he would help you. But he never took your confidence away. He was always promoting it, and you knew that he was giving you notes for the right reasons to make your performance better. Milos Forman I worked with on Valmore. That was a scary experience, because I only had one scene properly, lots of scenes, but one proper scene with Colin Firth, when I had to be all sort of femme fatale-ish at a door and hello. And I did it. And a couple of days later, we were sitting at dinner whole cast was sitting in a lovely French restaurant, and I saw Milos looking over at me going, I thought, oh my God, I think he's going to sack me. I'm for the job. And I said to everybody around me, he's looking at me in the most extraordinary way. I think you'll find tomorrow I'm going to be replaced. End of. Well, the next day I did go in, and he said, Isla, I think we shoot that scene again, because what I want from you is Isla. I don't want you being anything else. Before you were acting, and now what I want you to be is Isla. Very hard to be Isla when you don't quite know what Isla is. But anyway, I did it again, and he seemed to be happier with it then. So that's a strange thing, isn't it? I don't. And he once he was directing an actor in Amadeus. It was the same thing. He said, no, 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 you are acting. And so the guy who was sort of tried to do it all very much more naturalistically, and he said, no, 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 now you are acting, not acting. And you think, well, that's good, charming. But so he was scary, Milos, but he did know what he wanted, and I hope in the end I was able to give it to him, whatever it was. So,
and as an actress, did you embrace receiving notes from a director?
Yes.
Or did it make you somewhat insecure? No,
I think if you agree with the note and you think, actually, he's got a point then, that will be much better. What a good idea. That's terrific. I love getting notes from a. What I don't like bullies. And there are some directors who make themselves feel good by bullying you. Or having a whipping boy in the room. There's one actor that they'll always pick on, and you see them, that's poor actor being bullied. I hate that. And it's always a sign of weakness, I think, in a director if they do that. It's never a sign of strength. Bullies are never strong people. They're always weak people. And so bullying directors, and there have been a few, luckily I've been all right with them actually, but I don't even like it when I see it, as I say, picking on somebody else. No, I think I welcome notes actually. If people are trying to be helpful to you.
Now there's a bit of a fad at the moment with Letterboxd where they're asking people to name their 4 most favourite films.
Oh gosh.
Is there 1, 2, 3 films that are must-sees that I must see in my lifetime?
Yes, I mean, gosh, there's so many, aren't there? One recent film, actually, that I would urge people to see, I've seen it 3 times now, was Conclave. Did you see that film?
Very fine.
Oh, I thought it was wonderful. A film that I love, and I've seen several times, and I always ask actors to see, is The Goodbye Girl with Richard Dreyfuss, however you pronounce his name. That is a funny film, it's a sweet film, it's a lovely film, and it's very caring about actors. It tells our life story really, actually, about not getting apart, then it all being difficult and the director's no good and all of that. It's a lovely Goodbye Girl from ages ago. I think it was in the 70s sometime. I loved that film. I loved Gregory Peck, of course, To Kill a Mockingbird. I think that's a must-see. Do you know that book is now, you're not allowed to have that on the reading syllabus in America.
Oh, really?
No. They say because it's prejudiced. Well, of course it is. That's the whole point of the book, because it's trying to flag up the fact that there's terrible racism. Anyway, no, that was, and almost anything with Audrey Hepburn in it, I think, and Jean Simmons, my 2 heroines.
Fantastic. Now, a bit of a fun one for you now, Isla. You are hosting an intimate dinner party, and you're able to invite 3 guests to come along. Alive or dead, in the profession, outside of the profession. Julian, of course, is invited. Who would you choose to invite and why?
3 I've got, have I? First up, there'd be Arthur Miller, I think. I'm a great admirer of all his plays, love them. I should imagine he's a really interesting guy to talk to. Funnily enough, I went to a sort of talk that he was giving up in, I can't remember where it was now actually. Was it Norwich? Somewhere like that. And we all stayed in the same hotel. And we came down and we had breakfast together. Not together, he was at the same table. You see what I mean? We weren't together. And I remember thinking, gosh, I just liked everything about him. I thought that he was gracious, he was courteous, he had a great air of calm about him. And of course, he has a wonderful intellect, in my opinion, and that's always very attractive. So Arthur Miller, Katharine Hepburn, because she's not only a wonderful actress, but I think to me, she strikes me as being a very wise woman. And I remember someone saying that she said to Peter O'Toole, I've worked with Peter O'Toole, and she said to Peter O'Toole, you have got an amazing, major talent. Why are you squandering it? Because he was drinking so much. That's pretty good coming from someone like her. But I think she's fantastic. So Katharine Hepburn. And another one, which is probably rather off the wall, actually, but there's a politician who I'm not a member of the Tory party, by the way, absolutely not. But this is a Tory politician, or he was, Rory Stewart. He ran for the leadership, and I feel he should have got it. I listened to his podcast with Alistair Campbell. He's so good. For me, he's so on the button about everything he said. He seems to me to be very level-headed, not in any way biased, not trying to promote theories. He seems to be wise and clever, and I could wish that he was our Prime Minister. But there we are.
Wow.
That's three.
Three good choices. Tell us something about you or your career that most people would not already know. I don't know, maybe you are passionate about a hobby or any pastimes?
I write a bit, and I've written a book actually, which is just really about my early childhood in India, really. Well, it's about my early life, but it stops at my first job, really. Includes meeting Julian a bit, but it's a sort of memoir. So I do like writing, and I've written for magazines and newspapers and things. But also, if I wasn't an actress, a job I would have loved, despite the early mornings, I'd love to have been a florist. I'm very, very interested in plants, all things floristry, really. I love... is that thunder? I think it is. Gracious. Anyway, I love flowers. I just think, anything to do with flowers, they cheer me up. I think they're just beautiful. They smell wonderful. They look wonderful. So floristry would be good. But getting up at 3 a.m. to go to the new Covent Garden Market may not be quite so much fun.
So having known that, I'll probably put more thought into buying you a better bouquet of flowers for you today.
The flowers that you bought were gorgeous. So they're beautiful, colourful and lovely. So.
You've enjoyed such a long career. What are your overarching memories of the career that you've had? How would you like to be remembered?
Well, I think it's difficult to say really, because there were two things in my life that were more important than my career, to be absolutely honest. One was Julian, and the other was Jamie. So I've always put Julian and Jamie before my career. For example, I was asked to do a television series in America, again because I was under contract to 20th Century Fox, called The Nanny and the Professor, which meant being out in Los Angeles for another 5 years. And I said no. They couldn't believe that I was saying no, and they kept on upping the money. And my agent said, I think you're not understanding her. She doesn't want the money particularly, although the money would be very nice. She doesn't want to leave. She's just had a new baby. No. Well, she can bring the baby out and have a nanny to look after. No, she wants to be with the baby. So Jamie and Julian, I would say, I put before my career, and I'm very glad I did, because I've had my moments in the sun in the career that I've had. I've had wonderful parts on stage, lovely parts on screen and television. I've worked with some wonderful, really interesting actors, but I've also had a very happy home life that I wouldn't swap for anything. And Julian and I, every evening, by the way, out on our terrace out there, now it's in the summer, and we sit there with a bottle of wine between us and watch the sun going down every single evening. Maybe we might come in at about 9 o'clock, 9:30, if there's anything on telly, we watch it. But we just chat to each other, and I think that's, for me, that's precious. It's really precious. So I wouldn't give up any of the time that I've spent with Julian and Jamie for a job. really.
Wonderful. So let's close out with my final question, Isla, bringing us right up to the present day. Finish the sentence. What happened to the actress Isla Blair?
Oh, goodness me. She moved on from the lady with the teeth. Oh, that was funny too, actually, though, because I got very told off by Christopher Reeve, quite rightly, because I was at one point when I had these teeth and these fangs in. You have to go for a fang fitting so they get them all right. And I was on set with Martin Jarvis, actually, and I had to say to him, "Kiss me, kiss me." Well, of course, I laughed. Christopher Lee was absolutely furious. And he said, "If you don't take this seriously, the audience won't, so pull yourself together." He was absolutely right, and I was very chastened, and immediately both Martin and I stopped laughing. But Isla Blair moved on from that to do, again, I would always take a stage play over a television play, oddly enough. But I did. Maybe to my detriment, because it means that I'm not as well known as probably if I'd stuck to the television things. But for self-satisfaction and to feed my soul, which sounds a bit presumptuous, you know what I mean, I think I made the wise choice, really, just to do a lot of theatre work. So that's where the actress went. She went into the theatre.
And how do you occupy oneself today?
Oh gosh, well, Julian and I, we do a lot of things. We go to a lot of exhibitions and we go to a lot of theatre. Luckily, we still go to a lot of theatre. What else do we do? I read a lot, actually. I can't imagine not having a book on the go. I don't know if you're the same as me. I have to have a book. I sometimes feel a bit guilty if I read during the day because I feel I should be doing the housework and mopping the floors and things. But I like to read, and as I say, I like to write. I write all the time, actually. I don't necessarily keep a diary about today I went to the dentist. No. I jot things down about little things that occur to me. Somebody that I saw on a bus and the way that they reacted with something. Things like that. And I've got pages and books of those. So I do that pretty much every day, actually. I write something down about how the day's gone, or something that I saw the day before yesterday that suddenly occurs to me. So, yeah, that.
Fantastic. So, Isla Blair, thank you very much.
It's been a great pleasure, Michael. Thank you so much. Gosh, you've done your research.